Greetings from Ann Arbor, Michigan, a great state and a great place of the great USA. Welcome to our podcast series, and I am promising you that this series is going to be very enlightening, very inspirational, a lot of fun, and something that will really, I think, help you as you walk your path to holiness. This series is going to have a lot of different things that you probably have questions about, but maybe had the opportunity to ask, especially about religious life. Like, what do they do all day? Who are they? Where do they come from? What's it like when a young woman enters religious life? So stay tuned as we will discuss where sisters come from today. Welcome back to Go LE Digital and the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, here in our studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I am Sister Joseph Andrew Bogdanowicz, and it is my pleasure to host so many of my beautiful sisters and priest friends and others on this podcast entitled The Truth Shall Set You Free. So welcome back. And if this is your first time tuning in, there are many others that you can certainly also listen to. They're all fascinating. And being a Dominican, I tell the truth because you see, Veritas, which means truth, is the title of the motto of our Dominican order, which is 800 years old. And today I have a sister who took the name of a great Dominican, Sister Louis Marie Zog. And Sister Louis Marie, it is so good to have you here today. So tell us a little bit about your background, about your family and where you were born and, how you sister. Began to, well, just how the faith was formed in you.
Yeah. Thank you, sister. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great.
So when I come from a beautiful Catholic family. Both my parents are so faithful. And
yes.
So I really learned the faith from both of them. And I remember when I was young, I would be on vacation and I would think, how is it possible for us to find a mass? We'd be in the middle of, Arizona or whatever. But Dad would always have figured it out and we would make it, So it was always something that no matter where we were, no matter what we were doing, that was the central piece of our life. And my parents were really, they were always doing things in the parish. So I learned from my parents.
Now, did you go to a Catholic school in elementary school?
I did, sister, and I'm very grateful for that. I went to elementary all the way through high school, and then I actually went to college at the University of Notre Dame. So all the way through.
Interesting. And sister, where are you from again?
I'm from Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So
how did a Cedar Rapids, Iowa young woman choose Notre Dame and get accepted and study there?
Yes. So I wanted to study biology and
beautiful.
And
the audience knows that that's my field too.
So good. So they're all familiar with that. Great.
Yes, we have a strong bent towards science in our community.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Theology and science and
faith
philosophy
and reason,
and the scripture, and it all goes together. Beautiful.
So I was looking for a school that was Catholic and also had a strong science program. And I made it into Notre Dame. And so
That's
my
beautiful.
Parents, said that'd be fine if I went. So I went. And while I was there, there's both the good and the bad at that school as far as fidelity.
As any school.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right. But you can find good, faithful people there. And I did. And there's adoration every day on campus. At least there was when I was there. And so I signed up for a Eucharistic Adoration Holy Hour. And
Sister, you have just hit on a theme of so many of our sisters before they really opened up to their religious vocation. And I'm sure it's for many young people today, before they open up to either whatever vocation God has given them. But our sisters, a very common theme, certainly not universal, is going and praying in Eucharistic adoration before really opening self. It's like that almost is the catalyst to the freedom to be able to ask the question and mean it. What is it you will of me? Be it done to me according to your will. So, Sister, Notre Dame has, I know it's well over 50 Eucharistic chapels spread throughout that Catholic campus. And I think that sets it apart in a way probably a lot of other people don't think of it. But if you have 50 plus presences, I believe the last count I made was like 56, of our Lord present in the Eucharist scattered throughout a very high academic, demanding, challenging, excellent university filled with young people, you're going to be making a difference because in reality, you've just put the Lord in their very midst. How did Eucharistic adoration affect you?
Yes, I think one of the things that I'm realizing more and more is that no matter how strong and how much we can come to know intellectually, there's something about sitting before the mystery of the Eucharist that it just humbles you and it makes you realize you need God. And so, I would work very hard at all of my studies, as a student. And I would be working really hard to figure out organic chemistry or whatever. Yes. But then at the end of the day, I knew no matter what I did, I needed God. And so I would end up in the chapel, asking the Lord for help.
Oh, Sister, how beautiful. Talk about grace is already working in your life, but again, you expressed your love of your family. And again, I have no idea what I would be today if it wasn't for my parents showing us the way and making it, demanding it, so to speak, of us, but also with such alluring quality of the good, the true, the beautiful that I wouldn't have chosen anything else.
Yes.
Even when it became sacrificial, such as now you're on a college campus, you're dead tired, you've been studying, you're mentally exhausted and exhausted in every human dimension, I am certain, and yet you knew and you said yes to the Lord's invitation to go visit him on one of those Eucharistic. Now, Sister, I remember going to Notre Dame. Our community is not that far geographically from the University of Notre Dame, and early on, we made beautiful friendships that remain there. In particular, Brett Perkins.
Yes.
And he is now in charge of the RCIA on the campus. But we were invited there just any time for the presence of the religious vocation, the religious women on that campus. And so we would go there once, or sometimes we were blessed to be able to squeeze in twice a year with busy schedules on our part as well. But I remember going there one time and meeting you. Would you like to tell our audience how all that took place?
Yes. So I was in the pro-life group, and we had a youth rally for the youth groups in the area who would like to come about the pro-life issues, but we also had a vocations panel. So I don't remember who the married couple was, and then we had a priest, and then we had you, Sister, as our speaker. Yes. And you came and you brought probably 6 or 7 other sisters. And I talked to one of those sisters, and I remember thinking, I didn't know that young women wore the habit. This is the first time I'd ever seen a sister in a habit. Iowa, wonderful people, but we just don't see religious sisters there. So I was kind of struck by that. And I was struck by you, Sister, as you talked about your religious vocation, and it struck a chord deep within me. But at the time, I sort of suppressed that.
Why?
Because that night, I was going on my first date ever with this young man. And
God's timing, can you imagine?
So I was like, oh, sisters, this is wonderful. Nice to meet you. See you later.
Exactly, you did.
So that stayed on my mind and my heart. And then for the rest of the summer, I started to date this young man. He was great, wonderful friend, wonderful Catholic. He's married now. He has children. But it wasn't authentic. I wasn't being true to myself. And I remember thinking about marrying him and thinking about what that would mean. And I always say this, but I worry that people will take it the wrong way. But I sort of felt when I thought about that of being suffocated. Like my heart,
that was your spirituality, as your unique soul.
Like my heart
exactly
needed to give itself completely to the whole world in the way that a bride of Christ does. And I can articulate that now, but at the time, I just knew there was something not right about me continuing in that relationship.
So was it smooth sailing once you decided that this was it?
Yes. Well, except that my parents, who, like I've said, they're wonderful, but they also had no experience with the religious.
Sure, exactly.
And when I told them that I wanted to be a sister, actually, they were thrilled by that. And then I said, I'm going to enter right now, which it was right in the middle of my college years. I hadn't graduated yet. And they were really upset about that because they thought that was foolhardy. You know, what would happen if I didn't continue in that vocation? I need a degree. I need something to be able to do. So
how did you make your decision before God?
Well, I began by thinking that my parents, I had never disagreed with my parents. And so I began by thinking that must be God's will, that I not enter what my parents are saying. This must be God's will. And so I conveniently ignored all of your emails, sister.
I remember.
Until finally you called me. And God bless you. And thank you. And you said, and I started off by saying, you know what, I'm going to do all this good at Notre Dame. Don't worry, I'll enter in 2 years. I'm going to do all this good at Notre Dame. I'll have all these vocations lined up for you, sister, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. That's what I heard. Blah, 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 blah.
And you cut me up. You said, this is a heresy of goods. If God is calling you to be his spouse, there is nothing that will make up the lack for that. And at the end of your life, he will say to you, well, you gave me all these years, but you didn't give me these 2 years, and I asked you for them. Why? And what kind of good response will I have? Nothing. There's nothing that compares. So,
Sister, I love the way you express that, because I think in our generation today, young people, and even many parents, of course, being vocation director the entire 22 years of our community's existence, I see it and hear it so frequently. What does a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and they'll go on, make, if she has a vocation, she will not lose that particular vocation. And I would just like to say, God won't perhaps lose it for her, obviously, but she will get distracted. And I could name so many young women. Because especially with women, whereas men, so this is a beautiful point you brought up, sister, men can put things on hold. Mañana fits them okay. It's like they're not going to budge. They're just going to wait. And somehow they have the grace to be able to do that relatively peacefully. Women don't. When God calls, he wants. And if there's not a good, honest, prudent reason for waiting, we are dangling a very fragile gift over a precipice, and we could sneeze and lose it in a heartbeat. And that's why, with you, sister, I saw what I truly believed is a very strong religious vocation that would fit totally into our community. If it wasn't for us, I would have sent you elsewhere, and I know many communities and continually do that for women according to their own spirituality. But you were driven by the same thing that makes up our community. And I just, as you beautifully said, there is no substitute for the total gift of self to God. No matter how many, quote, goods you would be doing, your heart would not be consecrated to him. And that's what he was asking. And so that's night and day. Sister, I also want to say, with that interesting vocation story, that God has put you through your vow of obedience in a very interesting position in our community now, few years down the road. And you certainly are under final vows, and you have taught, and you can mention some of those too that led up to the position that you now hold in the community. So would you tell us about some of your teaching and how that too is feeding into your present obedience?
I think one of the things that I think about when I think about all of my obediences is that obviously God's providence makes my heart sing with joy, really. Like how everything fits together. And there's so many ways in which it does. But I've taught in 2 different places. I taught in Chicago at St. Ignatius College Prep.
Beautiful.
For 1 year. That was my first year teaching. And then I taught in Lansing for 1 year, chemistry, Lansing Catholic High School. And
Did you teach chemistry also at St. Ignatius?
At St. Ignatius, I taught this integrated science course.
Okay.
It was physics, chemistry, and biology.
Interesting. Okay.
So, yes, it was a little stretch for me with the physics, but I made it.
It would be for me too.
God helped me.
Exactly.
And then after teaching in Lansing for 1 year, I went to study philosophy at CUA. And that was a huge privilege.
Catholic
All of them.
University of America.
That's right, Catholic University of America.
Okay.
And then I went back to Lansing Catholic to teach another year in chemistry before I was asked by Mother to be the postulant mistress.
Okay, but before we get into that, let's go back just a little bit.
Yes.
So you've taught in 2 different high schools,
Yes, 2 different high
basically,
schools.
both co-ed, but different on a number of, one in the heart of Chicago, right in
Yes.
by the L, right there in the heartbeat,
Right.
right down from, well, it's right in the center of Chicago, and another in our own diocese,
That's
in
right.
the Lansing Diocese. So from your experience in those 2 different high schools, how would you say you found things to be different and yet the same?
The same in the students are all hungering for God,
Yes.
and they're all wounded, and they're all
Yes.
you have to win them. High school students are they're very challenging in many ways, but a joyful, it's a joy because
They
have
want to be one,
exactly,
but they might not know that.
exactly, and I always found it fun.
Yes.
To try to figure out how to capture that one's attention and how to. In order to draw that person to the Lord,
Beautiful.
So in that sense, the students are very similar. The school in Chicago is a larger school,
Yes.
and there's sort of this type of student that comes in there is always college bound, and so it was just a different
driven
dynamic.
academically,
Yes.
very strong because they all have to go to
Yes.
college.
And I was on a team of multiple teachers teaching the same thing.
Interesting.
There's a lot of differences from Lansing Catholic, which is more homespun, sort of down to earth type of blue collar. Wonderful. I really loved that. And I was the only teacher teaching chemistry, so I had some freedom there. And yes. So.
Oh, that's beautiful, sister. Okay, so, and then you obtained your philosophy degree from
Yes.
Catholic University of America. We
Yes.
have the same degrees, sister.
Sure.
Don't you love philosophy?
Sir, I love it.
I
I'm
do
so
too.
grateful.
It gives you such a background to be able to think critically.
Yes.
And I think that is one thing that we really do need more and more to highlight as teachers, as parents, as young people, to have the desire to learn critical thinking skills. We're in such an age of emotion, and people can't give reasons for their emotion because they're not thinking. And so it makes us very defensive inaccurately. It makes us vulnerable in ways we shouldn't be. Because, as it says in 1 Peter, we should be able to give a reason for our faith, for what we believe, for what makes us get up in the morning and live our lives, and for the joy that we bring into existence and everyone's life, as well as certainly our own. And if we can't, just because we go on feelings, we are very much we're having a very difficult time getting through life. We are dragging our feet and things don't go together smoothly. And at any whim, we can change our, quote, mind, when in reality it's change our feelings.
That's right.
Which is non-substantial. I mean, it's nice when they go along with what our brains are saying. But if they lead the pack, we don't know where we're going or where we will end up.
That's right.
So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, now, your obedience has become, through time,
I work with the new sisters who have just entered.
beautiful. So I hand them over to you.
You hand them, and I'm so grateful to receive them.
And sister, I'm so grateful to be able to hand it to you because you were just so excellent in this.
Thank you, sister. Thank you.
Oh, I am.
Yes, I think it's been a great privilege for me, a great joy,
Yes.
because I get to talk about the Lord
Exactly.
and our religious life, what I love about our life. And I also get to teach them the catechism. But even their witness to me, I get a front row seat in grace.
Beautiful.
Because you see God's love for them unfolding, or you see them grasping his love, I guess you could say.
And opening and desiring. Okay, so Sister, tell us a little bit about our community's postulancy and exactly what is your title?
I'm the postulant mistress.
Okay.
That's my title.
Okay.
And our postulancy is 1 year
Okay.
before they become a novice. And I think one of the visual cues, which are very important, is that they wear the blue skirt and vest and blouse.
Right.
And so they enter asking God. So postulant means to ask in Latin. And they're asking God, is this your will for me? Is this what you desire from me? And it's not like they're asking that at every moment. They're just entering into the life. Does this fit?
Beautiful.
Does this make me who I'm supposed to be?
Yes.
And make me more and more who God has called me to be. And that's what we look for.
Now, Sister, is it possible someone would enter and I know and you know, the community knows that the application process is no easy process. It's not for the faint of heart. So these have already been put through several tests, been taught through a pre-postulancy period, had to really step up to the plate in a number of ways. And so they have proven true. But as you just mentioned, Sister, this is like the first year in the community to say, again, is this what God wants of me? Will I become a saint with this? And so we're really talking about, is this where you will find the graces God has waiting for you, in your holiness? Sister, I wanted to ask you too, what is like a typical day, which would be similar to that of the novices, but for you, a young woman who enters our community? Well, first of all, are we getting very many vocations?
Sister, we are by the grace of God and by your sweat and blood and tears.
Grace of God. And Sister, where are they coming from?
All over.
All over the creation. All over. And what ages are they?
Usually average age of around like 20, 21, 22.
Exactly. But they have to be at least, 18. They have to have graduated from high school, let's put it that way. And then up to approximately 32. Okay, Sister, so now I take all these beautiful women that I just absolutely love, and I've worked with at least a year, if not sometimes 2 or 3 or whatever it may be, and then I give them to you, and then I walk out to fish in the oceans again. You take them, and what would a typical day be for our postulants?
So they enter into the prayer life of the community right away. And they enter into, we have the holy hour every morning. They follow the same prayer schedule, including an extra rosary in the afternoon and some extra spiritual reading time. And then also daytime prayer, which not all the sisters, because of the apostolate, are able to pray. So they enter into the monastic observances of our life, the silence and all of that beautiful part of our religious life that makes it possible for us to be connected to the Lord, to be united with Him. And then they also have classes. They study catechism.
Sounds quite Dominican.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. Praise God.
Catechism, scripture.
Vatican II documents, church history. It depends on semester to semester. And then there's also class time where I talk to them about living in community. And
beautiful.
Because this is it's a vital part of our religious life, especially as Dominicans, our community life, and living and sharing this life together. So that's something
beautiful.
We
I
see.
would think, Sister, if I was going to be a fly on the wall, that class would be fascinating because you get young women from all kinds of backgrounds. High school education, part of college, all of college, degrees amassed while they tried to figure themselves out. the workforce, all varieties of families, different cultures.
Yes.
You're looking at a smattering of young people across the board, young women across the board in so many different ways. And yet it's your role as their spiritual mother in particular, obviously along with the Mother Superior, Mother Assumpta also, but it's your role to form them into what does it mean to be a Dominican sister and a Dominican sister of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist on so many levels.
Right.
So how do you really go about that?
It's so human.
Beautiful.
I think one of the things to emphasize before you get into all the spiritual things is how do you relate with the other sisters? You know, a lot of times they're very concerned about their prayer life, but I always point out to them that prayer and community life are like two sides of the exact same coin. Can you be attentive to one another? And can you take seriously your duties? Can you cook? Can you clean? Can you sew? And if you can't, are you trying to learn? And a lot of them who have super wonderful degrees have never looked at a sewing machine in their entire life.
I'm sure that is the vast majority in today's world.
And need to learn to look into the upper corners of their hallways. And anyway, so it's
beautiful,
like these are human things, and we take care of them.
You're going to get all the moms sending all their daughters just for the human formation of how to cook, clean, sew, take care of others, be a mom's maternal heart. So, Sister, I think all these moms are becoming, can you have a boarding school to teach our daughters that? No, we don't. But if they have a religious vocation and it happens to be to our community by God's design, then bring them on. Sister, there's no way I or any of us can thank you enough for really what you do. And I have to laugh because as you begin your own vocation story and you come to the part where your mom really had to let go and how difficult that was. And I, as vocation director, dealing with so many moms, I'm saying, that's so normal and that's so beautiful and that's so correct. Again, if a mom doesn't shed tears over her daughter entering a community, I begin to wonder what's wrong with the daughter, that she's not going to miss her because our maternal natures do this in this manner and express love so many times in this manner. So I cherish those tears. And I know my mom shed plenty over my vocation, and my sister, who was 2 years older than I, so it was losing both two daughters that she had, and so to speak, never losing, but they would say it that way. We would say gaining so many more as well and solidifying our daughterhood to our moms. However, your mom came up to me and said, I get it now. I love it. She's so happy. I'm so thrilled. Can I go with you on the road? I want to tell other moms so that they don't go through what I went through. And I love that, that enthusiasm, that joy that your vocation has brought out in your own family. And then tell your audience, as we begin to close, a little bit about what your dad has pursued since you entered the convent.
Yes, thank you, Sister. My parents continue to be such an example for me. And my dad, he has become a deacon in the past couple of years. Beautiful.
And that's no small task.
No. And it's also my mom's task.
Exactly.
So that's something that they had to commit to together.
Exactly.
And they sacrifice. Their faith has really deepened profoundly through the years, and it's just been such a gift. And they are a grace for me. We have this mutual prayer support. So. God is so good, and He has given abundantly, 100, 1,000-fold, in both of our lives. And we both just want to go to heaven to be with the Lord. That's what we are. That's where we're headed together, and we really recognize that and feel that. So
that's absolutely beautiful, Sister. I remember when my mother was having a hard time, and so I went to my father and said, Mom really doesn't want for both her daughters to enter the convent in 2 years. So she's crying all the time. And my father was standing there, and he's 100% Polish Catholic, very deep faith. And he said, yes, honey, I know. And I thought, well, you got to help me a little bit here. And he just said, I know. And I said, well, you don't express, it looks like you're gung-ho for my vocation as well, but you're quiet about it. He goes, I better be. And I said, well, yes, that's true. But what do you have to say about it? And he gave me such advice. It was very simple and very strong. If you don't get your own soul to heaven the way God's asking you to, don't ever think that your hesitation and whatever plan you might come up with that is not His will ever help your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, and anybody else. You do God's will. And if God chooses both my daughters, I think He has good taste. So with that, Sister Louis Marie, we will end this beautiful segment of The Truth Shall Set You Free with my effusive gratitude to you and your family and God for the beautiful vocation and your fulfillment of that beautiful vocation in our community and helping other young, zealous women give their totality back to Him. Thank you, Sister. God bless. So if you like the material on this particular podcast, then please click on the next podcast for another fascinating story.